All right, here's our video for Brahms' Waltz. This beautiful piece by Johannes Brahms, which was originally written for piano. I'll try to include a link below so you can actually hear the original version. But let's talk first of all about the fact that we have 3 beats in this piece. Every waltz, of course, is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 beats in each measure, and that makes it so that we have a little bit of an issue with the bow. We have to make sure the down bows are a little bit slower and then that the up bow takes us back. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck at the tip. So I think the first thing we can do to practice for this piece, the whole piece, we're going to learn it first only staying in the lower half of the bow. So you can kind of look at the middle of your bow, and that's where we're going to stop. We're not going to move at all up into the upper half at all. And let's practice that by putting the bow down at the frog. We'll put it at the frog on open A. And we're going to make sure that your shoulder, elbow, wrist, and fingers, everything is completely relaxed. The elbow not too low, but definitely springy. So you can see about where my arm is here. And what we're going to do is just practice going 2 beats on the down bow, 1 beat on the up bow, and the goal is to always get back to the frog. So to get back to the frog, we're going to need to make sure that this wrist is completely letting go, because of course if the wrist is tight, you aren't going to be able to get back there. It's going to be scratching, and the bow will have a hard time staying in the track. So we need to make sure you have this sort of wrist and arm that you would have if you were doing a yo-yo. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start at the frog on open A. Put the bow down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You see how I was using that elbow to push back. So this is your first goal, to make sure that we can really get used to doing 2 beats on a down bow and 1 beat back. And listen to, again, I'm going to do it again, and I want you to pay attention to how I'm making the sound completely even all the way through. So it's a beautiful sound, no matter whether I'm on the down bow or the up bow. I'm trying to make it completely even so I don't hear any change in the sound. Okay, now we're going to add a crossover to the D string, which is what we have in Brahms' Waltz. And now we're going to do this with stopped bows to make that string crossing. So I'm going to start again on the A string at the frog, again making sure my arm, the shoulder's dropping, the elbow, and the wrist and the fingers. And we're going to go 1, 2 to the middle, over to the D string, down, up, up. So again, that's A, stop, D, D, A, stop. If you hear anything crunching like this, it means that the wrist is not loose enough. So you need to shake it out and listen again for this beautiful toe sound on each of these separated bows. Okay, so notice how I sort of stopped the first note a little bit short. I didn't hold it all the way, and that's what we're going to do as we do our fingers in waltz. Before we move into Brahms Waltz and do the whole piece, we need to do that little exercise at the bottom, which deals with the two grace notes. And it goes like this. It's in the third measure. Your one will be down, and it sounds like this. So we want to make sure it's 2, 3, 2, 1. That you're fitting those little grace notes in right at the last second and not a little bit early. So we can do that by practicing by first putting down 1, low 2, 3. This is going to remind you a little bit of what you did in Hunter's Chorus. And so we'll set 1, 2, 3. We're going to do 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, picking these up, and it's going to be down, up, down, up. So here it goes. You can see what this looks like. Little bow in the lower half of the bow. So I'm keeping my 1 down. I'm setting 2 and 3. 2, 3. And then all we have to do is add that first note. So I'm going to put 1 down again on the A string. I'm going to put low 2 for C. We're going to play 2. Stop the bow. Set your 3. And then just play 3, 2, 1. So notice everything is down except the last note in this exercise. So we have our 1. We're going to set 2. Little bow. Set 3. Okay, so if you do that enough, then you're going to end up with a very seamless, nice pair of grace notes there that will sound like this. Okay, so now we're going to start at the beginning of Brahms Waltz, and we're going to stop the bow for every single note and keep it on the short side so we have time to set fingers. The only exception to that is going to be when we have that grace note, and here we can just try to play that out because if you've done your exercise that we just went over, it should be fine, and it's very hard to stop there. It's much easier to play it this way. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so notice in this first line, the 1 is set and it just stays down so long. So really make sure you're keeping your 1 down. And again, I'm going to go back to the frog, just like we did for our open string exercises that we did at the beginning of this video. And here we go. To the middle. Now we're going to set 3 on the D string, keeping the 1 down. Move the bow over. Down, up, and we come back. Set 3. Up, down. Each time stopping in the middle. Now this time we stop and the 3 hops over to the A string. 4. Now we have 1 on the E string. Bow moves over. High 2 for C sharp. Now we're at the first ending. And we keep the 3 down and put the 2 for F sharp on the 2 is on the D string, but it's going to be right next to that 3, so we make sure it's in tune. The bow goes over to D, and now we do the repeat. Okay, so we have that first ending, it goes back to the beginning, we get there again, and we take the second ending to go on. So notice that I was always returning back to the frog each time. I was stopping every single time in the middle of the bow. And I was making sure that I was setting fingers, preparing them before crossing strings so that it's always finger, bow, and then go. Now I'm going to play that first half again from the beginning. This will be the repeat. And when I get to the repeat, I'm going to go on to the second ending. Now I'm going to go on. 1, 1, 3, 3. Open A. Let's use 4 here. 4, 3. Now it's like the beginning again. Here's where it changes. 2 on the E string, 3 on A. Open A is good, and then of course the first ending it repeats again, and the second time it just ends with that G, as you can see in the music. Okay, so take that in small sections. Make sure you're really getting the push of the elbow back. If it's really hard to get back to the frog and relax the wrist, you can just practice that with open strings. Keep the bow small, and remember, focus on one thing at a time. So if you're focusing on the left hand, then sort of keep the bow relaxed and just put all your focus over here on finger setting. Now I'm going to do this as it is when we smooth it all out. And the first half is going to still stay only in the middle of the bow, only go to the middle of the bow and back to the frog. In the second part of the piece, after the repeat sign, you see it says poco crescendo, which means gradually getting louder. And we're going to gradually get louder by gradually going a little, starting with small bow, and gradually moving a little farther out toward the tip and coming back to the frog. So, in other words, expanding the bow until the point where you're using the full bow by the end of that. So you'll see how this works. I'm going to hopefully allow you to see my arm here. So I'm going to start at the beginning, and this is how we are going to do it after all the string crossings and everything are really well ingrained. Here comes the crescendo. Start soft. A little more. More. Okay, so one other thing that probably should be said about that crescendo line, you notice I'm really in trouble if I just automatically start speeding up the bow. And I'll show you what I mean. Of course, what I'm doing there is using way too much bow, so I can't hang on. And what we have to do is the exact opposite. As you get louder, you might be needing to move just a little closer to the bridge. And we need to start with a very, very slow bow that then you speed up gradually. So watch that again as I get into this crescendo. So I have the feeling starting soft and louder. And you have the feeling that you're almost trying to hold on for a long time. Again, your 64 exercise that we do with the subdivisions and the bow division is very good for this feeling of sustaining the bow. Notice in this melody that it sort of starts out and gradually works its way higher. That's sort of the whole scheme of the piece, is to gradually get a little bit higher over the course of the whole piece. So we start, and it does it again, and then it goes here, and then it goes a little higher, and even higher. So you want to be aware of that sense of moving up all the way through the piece. Okay, and there's one final exercise that I'm going to show you in this video just to give you a sense of some of that, getting back to the frog and doing the crescendo. And we'll just do it on the open E, and it's going to have the same 3 beats, 1, 2, 3 of our waltz. But instead of starting at the frog this time, we're going to start in the top quarter of the bow. So right about here, you can see where I am. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the same place. 1, 2. Now I'm going to go to the middle. 1, 2, to the bottom quarter, and then to the frog. So I started here, I went down using the top quarter, back to the same place, down again, this time to the middle, down again, this time to the quarter, the bottom quarter, and then down again and back to the frog. And of course, as I'm doing that, it's this elbow pushing that's getting me back to the frog. And you notice how the crescendo then is really developing as I'm using more bow. And listen, though, on the down bow, notice how I'm trying to keep the sound very even on each of those down bows. So I'm going to do it again one more time. And so listen to this. I'm going to start right up in the top quarter. And I used too much bow because I actually even clipped to the bottom, but that's okay. So you might want to get closer to the bridge as you're doing that. But a little bit of that exercise you'll notice that the crescendo will get better and better. As you're working for the dynamics, just keep trying it and think about what you want to do and keep making your arm do it. And as you work that way, it will get better and better. And of course, make sure you're never pressing for the sound. It's a matter of relaxing, using this relaxed weight and just using more motion, but never pressing in, because when you start to press in, you actually get less sound, not more sound. So you want to just open up and stay relaxed and bring the sound out. So that is our video for Brahms Waltz. good luck, happy practicing, take one thing at a time, and I will see you along the way.